Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'm Dr. Gurnam Singh, your host today on another Sikh think tank show. And we have a very compelling discussion for you today ahead of the climate crisis and the Sikh response. And we're honored to have a very distinguished guest with us, Dr. Jasdev Singh Rai, who represents the Sikh Human Rights Group, and also an organization called Nishani Sikhi, who's been very active in the field, in the space around global climate justice. So Jasdev, thanks for joining us. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Yeah, so as I said, we will be focusing particularly today on the COP28, the 28th conference of the parties, which is being held at this very moment in Dubai. And in fact, they're just in the kind of final stages of negotiating some kind of treaty. But just to say, COP28 represents this very supreme decision-making body of the United Nations framework on climate change, where countries come together, discuss and negotiate global responses to climate change. And in the last 3 decades, since the Rio summit and the launch of the framework on climate change, the Conference of Parties has convened member countries in every year to determine ambitions and responsibilities and to assess the current situation in terms of climate change. Now, the 21st session of COP, which was COP21 in Paris, resulted in the Paris Agreement, which was really quite a significant milestone. It mobilized a global collective action and this figure of limit global temperature increases of 1.5 above pre-industrial levels by 2000, and to act, to adapt, and to apply existing effects of climate change. So, as we will hear from Dr. Rai, who brings considerable expertise to highlight the Sikh involvement in this year's COP, but also his own activism and the organization they've been involved in terms of climate change. And so, just before we go into the kind of Sikh involvement, which we will focus mostly on, you were in Dubai, you've been there, and you attended. So give us a brief outline of what's been happening in the last few weeks, and where the kind of where the conference has reached now at the moment, because I know there's been some very delicate negotiations.
COP is a conference of the parties. The party means a state, a nation state. So all the 200 odd countries in the world are the actual participants or decision makers there. Everybody else is brought on as consultants, advisors, and all that sort of thing. The UN system is all based on the state system. A lot of people started raising the alarm about 25, 30 years ago that temperatures are rising, carbon emissions are rising, pollution is increasing, and the end of the world is near because of that it's a man-made disaster rather than a natural disaster. There was a lot of skepticism at the beginning. Conferences took place in Paris. Eventually, a lot of scientific evidence had been presented by then, although there were, as you know, there are a lot of climate deniers, climate skeptics as well. At the Paris conference, they decided that temperatures should only increase by 1.5 at the pre-industrial level. Otherwise, there are going to be a lot of disasters, such as areas where we won't be able to live, areas which will be quite badly flooded, and a lot of human refugees all over the place. I think some estimates are in sort of nearly 1 billion refugees as a result of the climate change. And it's also been pointed out that there have been climate...
Just can explore this figure, because there's a figure of 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. So that doesn't seem like a significant. And then another figure is 2 degrees. But there's something about this point of no return, this kind of tipping point, isn't there? Just explain what.
The tipping point is debated among scientists. Some say 3, some say 2. And of course, some say about 2.5. And what that means is that beyond that, then it will be impossible to go back. Now, the human body, for instance, the average temperature between 98.4 to 98.7, depending on your body. If it goes 1 degree more, 2 degrees more, you have what's called pyrexia or bakar or temperature. Okay, and if you go to 100 degrees or in 40 degrees in centigrades, then your body functions start going. They start stopping to some extent, and over that becomes very dangerous. So you can see 1 or 2 degrees
Mm.
is very important for human survival. People might say, well, Tankia 1.5 or 1.6, 1 point or 3, but you can see from your own body, if it goes, the temperature rises about 2 degrees or 3 degrees centigrade, your survival is at
Mm.
can be at stake.
Okay. And
That's
what
why
is the
they
temperature at the moment? What is the range at the moment? Where are we at the moment? Or have we gone beyond 1.5?
at the moment it seems that it's about 2. Okay,
Two.
and they
So
want to
we've gone beyond.
yeah, but some are saying it's gone to 3. Okay, again, it all depends on different scientist measurements, where you're measuring it, and what measurements you are including. Okay,
Yeah.
but it's between 2 and 3 that it's already around there, and they want to decrease it to
And is it
1.5.
possible to, given what we were saying about tipping point, is
Yeah.
are there technology? I mean, this is the other debate, isn't it? Whether we solve this problem through technological change, or whether we just simply stop consuming, stop burning fossil fuels. And one of the Al Gore said in an interview, and you might want to comment on this. What's
Yeah.
the point of holding this COP28 in the middle of the fossil fuel lobby? I mean, there's been a huge fossil fuel lobby, and I'm going to quote him. He said uh, that actually he criticized the appointment of Sultan Al Jaber as CEO of who was of Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. So isn't this a bit of a kind of a contradiction? Holding this in Dubai, surrounded by lobbyists for fossil fuel companies.
Well, yes, in the real world and real politics, lots of things happen which
Mm.
um, you know, we um, we challenge or get confused by. For instance,
Mm.
the Human Rights Council at the UN sometimes is led by countries which have a huge human rights violations record. But
Mm.
that's real politics, really, and there's not much you can do. The president of the COP, who's also head of the UAE, United Arab Emirates oil ministry, um, he poignantly said to Mary Robinson, who was at one time also the head of the Human Rights Council, High Commissioner for Human Rights, that you want us to go back to the caves. I mean, they've got a point there to some extent. What the oil-producing countries are saying, and again, we are now in the realm of conspiracies and things like that. That
Mm.
the West is trying to develop new forms of technology,
Mm.
alternative forms of energy, and try and destroy the economies of countries which are dependent on oil, or traditional countries such as China, India, Russia. They're trying to force them to change, and if they change, then their economies will go down. So there is that suspicion among many countries that there's a Western conspiracy here going on, that they want to sell their technology, and
Okay.
that this whole thing is a bit of a hoax. They don't quite say that, but they say that the time period, the alarmist
Mm.
language is a deliberate one. It's a new sort of economic colonialism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, so against that background, you can see the politics becomes quite complicated. And if Saudi Arabia and UAE are forced to stop selling oil, they haven't really got much else to sell. Then, yeah,
Now,
they're
I
not.
know that in the Paris Accord, one of the, I mean, this issue was obviously part of that agreement, and of course that
Yeah,
was a legally binding agreement, and there was this idea that we would have carbon exchange model so that you
yeah,
could offset your own carbon emissions by, supporting, say, developing countries in terms of technology transfer or not stop deforestation, etc. So has that not worked? Has that seemed to be kind of a get out of jail card for the West?
there was that. It was quite an ingenious formula,
Mm,
or the carbon exchange and all that, but it hasn't really worked. Yeah.
mm,
It hasn't worked because the total carbon emission has remained the same or increasing,
mm,
and people just buy off things and say, "All right, we bought this forest, and therefore we can say we can produce more carbon because the
mm,
forest will counter that carbon." Okay. And in reality, it hasn't really worked, although it's still in operation. They're looking
mm,
for some other methods of dealing with it. I mean, for instance, one of the I mean, the way this issue is complex, political. To some extent, the developed countries are not sincere in what they're doing. Okay, United
mm,
States is still producing a lot of carbon. They Brazil has a very strong argument. They're saying, okay, we are the lungs of the world.
mm,
uh, Somewhere there is a lot of oil, and you pay for that oil, okay, because that's the basis of your energy. Somewhere there's coal, you've been paying for that, okay, you want to stop coal. Somewhere you're producing all this solar energy, which is you're paying for that. So why don't you
mm,
pay for the air of the lungs of the world? Why, you want us to
mm.
not to destroy the Amazon, but how are we going to develop?
Yeah.
And nobody's coming up with a solution and saying, okay, there should be a global fund to compensate Brazil. So
Mm.
there's a lot more that will need to be done, and a lot of economic change will have to happen. A lot of
Well, just on the economics, I know that particularly, climate activists in South America, and you mentioned the
yeah,
Amazon in Brazil and other places. What they're saying is that the root of the problem is the growth model. And the growth model to grow economies, grow industries. You need
yeah,
energy, and and the only in the short term that's still fossil fuels. India's a good example. India's got what 8% growth. China's been growing at huge rates, but they've been burning a lot of coal, a lot of easily cheap fossil fuels. How do
yeah.
you actually disrupt this growth model? Or can we grow and still save the planet?
Well, I think that's where what we call, what the guru said, manmat.
Mm,
That's where we have gone wrong. We Countries are obsessed with GDPs. I mean, you
mm,
mentioned India. India and Modi are obsessed with GDP. We are now the highest GDP. That's all they seem to be bothered, not bothered about that 70% of the population can hardly eat one meal a day. Eh?
mm,
The GDP model has pushed countries towards growth, but not necessarily towards contentment or happiness, or good family life, or people being generally healthy and all that. And I think that again, there needs to be shift in the way, not modern philosophy. Maybe it needs to go back and learn from the past, that maybe the GDP pursuit of GDP is
mhm.
not the best way forward. Because GDP, you can carry on with GDP, it never ending. Um, I
Well, let me
think,
let me be a bit more straightforward then, and suggest that maybe capitalism itself is the problem, and that we need to know. Communism failed. It proved itself to be just as disastrous in terms of the environment, if not more disastrous. Capitalism is there. It's creating huge inequalities in wealth, and it is driving economies towards these growth, energy dependent economies. So, do we need to think of a completely new economic system, a world economic system. You know, can you deal with climate change without that system changing?
Currently, the debates are based around the capitalist system. So a lot of the arguments are, look, economically, it makes sense now to shift over, because if we don't shift over to carbon alternatives, the world is going to become quite disastrous, quite difficult, and economically will go down. So everything is being discussed in terms of economics in some way. Value systems are not given that much importance in all this. I think my own take on this is the world went wrong when it became secular. The word secular in Gursikhi means Manmat. It's what man controls. Okay, so when you move away from what are value systems, then my rationality will be different than your rationality, will be different than somebody else's rationality. So the UAE is saying, well, in order to keep our people at a standard of living, we need to produce the oil. Germany is saying, well, your oil is creating problems around the world, and we've got this alternative technology, which we have now made it cheaper, and you can buy that. So it's everything is still on the growth discussion. I think the orientation, the conceptual frameworks of people, humankind will have to change. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So let's move a bit more in terms of your own involvement and participation in the COP, and see. You know, there's a video that we might show some clips of it later. But just kind of give us some background. How did you get involved with the COP? Is it the first time, and how, what is it the first time the Sikh presence has been felt there? Just give us a bit of a brief summary of the kind of engagement.
We were involved in the World Conference on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg. At that time, we held a conference in Sri Anandpur Sahib, and invited a number of religious leaders, including from the Vatican. They sent a representative, the Church of England, and the Orthodox Church of East Europe sent a representative. We had representatives from all religious and dharma backgrounds, Buddhist and Hindus, and our emphasis was that that you need to bring in value systems from different beliefs and religions if you want to take the climate seriously. We weren't able to go to any other environment-related conferences because we didn't have consultative status then. We got our consultative status in 2015, and since then we've been able to go to a number of environmental meetings. But COP, we went to Egypt last year because sometimes in the UN system you have to apply to different departments separately to be recognized. And we were given what's called observer status here at the COP. Went to Sharm el Sheikh last year, where we won. That was because it was our first year. We could not hold any stalls or events and things like that. We just observed. We again invited 2 people from Nishan Sikhi, and we planned then for this year, which we did a much bigger presence. There are a couple of others. There are a few other Sikhs involved, but they come through different organizations, not their own organizations. We are the only one Sikh organization which have been able to go there under our own banner. So we go as Sikh Human Rights Group.
Just explain that to me. So you've got the government, you've got the big players, all the governments and their own environment ministers, and we've even had all the leaders there, and they have these very big set events. They presumably have some kind of inner core where they are negotiating agreements for the future.
Yeah.
And then you have all these NGOs who are what, like fringe events. Is that how it works?
Yeah, the NGOs and specialists, especially sometimes academics are invited, sometimes practitioners are also invited. Universities, I mean, for instance, our stall we shared with the University of Colorado and an African organization and another international organization. We had to share these spaces. What NGOs do is they lobby from their own perspective, their own ideas, and they try and get that in the agenda in the final draft resolutions. So one of the NGOs we shared the side event with is trying to push a statement that climate is a common human heritage. Which fair enough. We'll support them, and they might support what we are trying to push in the at COP. So NGOs are also one reminding countries, look, we come from civil society. We are telling you things are getting worse. You need to take a step. If not, then we will report back. And also trying to push their own ideas and proposals. Some succeed, some don't succeed.
Yeah, and so in terms of we'll go into some of the specific examples of the kind of projects that Sikhs have been engaged in, and I know that there were some interesting examples of that. But just before that, just one final thing on this year's COP. As I said, the negotiations are at a very delicate stage at the moment, and particularly around this proposal that we should ban. Have a date where we would stop using fossil fuels. What's the current?
Yeah.
What's the current? How do you read the situation at the moment? I think they're still negotiating, aren't they?
They are still negotiating for two reasons. One, countries like China and India, they have turned to the West and said, "Look, you've done the damage for 150 years, and now you're giving us lectures." Okay. So you want us now to stop developing just because you've got the you've got the edge on development. China, for its all its sins that people accuse it of, is ahead of its target. They said they will reach net zero by 2050, but they're already ahead of its target. They say the coal usage of coal will peak in about a couple of years, and then it will go down. They have transferred to alternative energy substantially, really. India is not on target. India is quite behind the target. Developing countries, they don't have the finance or the funds to buy alternative energy technology. That's their problem. They are still dependent on fossil fuel, yeah, and coal. Well, coal to some extent, but coal is being phased out completely anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to move us a bit more towards some of the ways in which Sikhi can address these things, and I know that there was a very interesting angle. I can't remember his name. Babaji Visage, and they were.
Yeah.
I think they were involved. Kudur Sahab to Sige mera kata na.
Yeah.
And because one of the issues is that we've gone beyond 2% now. We're into 3 degrees, and really it's a question of how can we reverse this thing, and the only way is to take carbon out of the atmosphere. I know they're talking about carbon capture technologies. But you highlighted some very natural kind of methods that we can begin to, as it were, cleanse the atmosphere. Just tell me about some of those initiatives that were talked about.
Yeah. The more important thing is that the Sikh Human Rights Group has been saying this for a long time at COP. Okay, not COP only, but at the UN. That the whole of the UN system is based on Western civilization and its ideas and its concepts, whereas many civilizations had concepts of human relation with the environment for thousands of years. They don't seem to be incorporated in this. And I give an example. In 2008, the COP had sanctioned setting up a universal ethics of environment. Okay? And there was the United Nations research body is UNESCO. UNESCO was drafting this universal ethics of environment. I was invited to give the Sikh position, and I said, look, as an Indian and particularly as a Sikh, I have an issue with the word universal. It seems where the church stopped, now the United Nations seems to know the mind of God. What is universal to you is not universal to me. Then I gave an example that the whole of Judeo-Christian or Abrahamic religions are based on the concept of fear of God. So if you don't accept God, then you go to hell and heaven. And that fear has continued in the cultures of even the secular Europe, secular West. So you fear the
Mm.
state, you fear the security, you fear this. And if you tell the average white person or European or American or an educated Indian that the world will end in 30 years, we must do something, they will start taking action. They will start thinking that, yeah, we need to do something. If you tell the
Mhm.
average Indian who's not had the benefit of university education, you might call benefit, or maybe this unfortunate the misfortune of having a university education, that
Mm.
Indian will say to you, even a Sikh will say to you, look, if the world ends in 30 years, my soul will go somewhere else, because not only Sikhs, but some other parts of Indian thought always thought there were thousands of universes. Okay, and if it's the karma of the world to end in 30 years, what can I do? So I pointed out the UNFCCC convention doesn't talk to nearly 70% of the world. The Chinese
Mm.
Confucius thinking doesn't think like that. African Ubuntu thinking is not like that. Many of the
Mm.
indigenous people in South America are not like that. So who are they trying to talk to and convert? And so
Mm.
I was asked to write a booklet on this. I wrote. UNESCO published it, and the committee that started the universal ethics dropped the idea. They wrote to the Secretary General saying, yes, they cannot be universal ethics. Different civilizations have their own ethical systems. And that is
Mm.
what we are pushing. And what is lacking in the whole debate, it's a very Western or Abrahamic debate about fear of the future. Okay?
Mhm.
We don't have
Armageddon. It's the
concept.
notion Armageddon. Yes, Armageddon.
Yeah, yeah, we
Yeah.
don't have this idea of the end of the world or the
Mm.
second coming and all that sort of thing. Okay, we either love God,
Mm.
or if you want to say God or Waheguru or eternal, whatever you how you understand Gurbani.
But
Uh, and if we
just stay
don't,
on that
you
one.
know,
On that point, I think it's really, I want to come in there because I think, and again, we will show the 15 minutes in a few
yeah,
minutes as well. So, but just before we do show that video of the meeting that you held, this is a really important point because, in some sense, the Abrahamic tradition is based on this God that is sitting outside of our human experience, as it were, sitting on the clouds or in
yeah,
some heavenly abode, looking down on us. But I don't think, as you said at the conference, within the Sikh tradition, the earth is our God, in not some kind of
yeah,
ritualistic way, but in terms of Gurbani Pavan Guru Pani Pita Mata Tatsamat. And therefore,
yeah.
to violate the earth is to violate the divine. And that's a very powerful message.
It is, and it's unfortunate that. We have moved away from that. We have it's essentially modern Sikh, what is called Sikhism. I don't call the word Sikhism.
No, no. Yeah.
Sikhism is basically a Protestant version of the Sikh philosophy, really. And you could. There's very little difference between the two, except we wear turbans and they don't.
Mm.
That sort of thing. And the ideas that have come up in many of the books that have been written by educated Sikhs have, you can't distinguish between that and Protestant Christianity. Whereas if you go to real Gursikhi, which is what Baba Gurpreet Singh brought there, and which is what
Mm.
Baba Seva Singh works on, you have a relationship with the whole of environment, with other species, with everything around you. Uh, uh, and and because we've lost that, this is why Punjab is such a mess.
Mm.
I don't think people, we get a lot of this kathakars talking about what the gurus did, what the gurus did. They never interpret Gursikhi into a modern world, in our world, the problems we have, and that sort of thing. And you can see the Punjab is in a mess at the moment.
Let
I
me just
think we need to bring our value systems back. Yeah,
well, let me
for
take you
us
to
at least.
task on that one because, I mean, if you look at, say, Punjab is it's the epicenter of our tradition. And,
Yeah,
when we had the Green Revolution in Punjab, nobody was complaining. Everybody
yeah,
was, they were happy and rejoicing. Bhangade pende sige. And now look at the
yeah.
consequences. So where do you put the blame?
Well, the blame, I think it's all very well to blame governments and all that. Okay, I don't think we should not look within ourselves as well. We held a conference at Kadur Sahib, before COP, in preparation for COP. That was in October, and very good statement made by one of the persons who spoke there, and said, we had the Green Revolution, we didn't have an exit strategy for it. We never developed an exit strategy for it, okay? And we just continued with the mess that the Green Revolution brought. Yes, the Green Revolution brought progress to Punjab, or development, and a lot of money and things like that. But there had to be exit strategies to that as well. I mean, there are people taking things in their own hand. There are others who keep on blaming governments, not taking things in their own hand, not taking responsibility.
But it was hardly a
Yeah,
green revolution. It was hardly green. I mean, that is the irony of the green revolution. It was destroying the
yeah.
natural kind of ecosystems of Punjab.
It is, and it has destroyed. I mean, it has poisoned Punjab's soil. I mean, nobody's asking the Punjabi farmer to grow rice, is there? Is anybody asking? I mean, we could keep on talking about water. Who's asking the Punjabi farmer, the farmer in Punjab, to grow rice? Nobody's forcing. There isn't a law. If the farmer of Punjab wants to grow rice, he draws a lot of water, then complains the water table has gone down. Well, the water table is going to go down because Punjab's terrain is not meant for rice. And similarly with wheat, if they want the maximum, I mean, before the Green Revolution, the average zamindar used the land for crops for his family. Okay, and what was left over they sold in the market. But now it's everything for the market and a little bit for the family, or you go and buy something in the market for the family. So
I'll
things
tell you
have
what,
changed a lot. That needs to change. Yeah.
Steve, think we've come to the halfway stage, and I think because we are now making reference to some of the comments that were made at the meeting, that so we've got the video for that. It's about 10-15 minutes long. So I think we should
Yeah.
play the video, and then we'll
Yeah.
be back with you in about 10 minutes, and then we'll have about 10-15 minutes to round up the discussion. Yeah, should we do that?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Ji, let's just see this video of Sikh Human Rights Group and Nishane Sikh and others who held this conference at the COP, and then we'll rejoin you back in about 15 minutes. Hanji, dekhiye video.
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Jasdev Singh Rai from Director Sikh Human Rights Group. Our approach and our proposal to the United Nations is that if the climate is a real crisis, then we need to move away from hegemony and talk in the terms and the concepts of different civilizations and communities. Every civilization, belief system, and people have had concepts of human relation with the environment for thousands of years. They didn't suddenly emerge in this century. And we need to leverage those to try and cope and end this crisis. I am going to introduce you to Baba Gurpreet Singh, who have a very successful project showing how taking a different approach than the language of the UNFCCC has achieved the same purposes. Baba. He will speak in Punjabi because that is what's been more effective in Punjab, and I will translate in English.
ਸਤਿਕਾਰਯੋਗ ਜੀਓ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ COP28 ਵਿੱਚ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ ਵਿਚਾਰਾਂ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਕੀਮਤੀ ਅਵਸਰ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ। ਦਾਸ ਗੁਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ, ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ, ਖਡੂਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਪੰਜਾਬ, ਇੰਡੀਆ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਚੇਅਰਮੈਨ ਬਾਬਾ ਸੇਵਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਕੁਝ ਵਿਚਾਰਾਂ ਸਾਂਝੀਆਂ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ।
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh is a Sikh greeting, which means under the eternal greetings to everybody. And it says, today we are gathered here to discuss some important issues in COP28. And this is Gurpreet Singh from Nishane Sikhi Kar Seva Khadur Sahib. That's the project, an environmental organization running under the able guidance of philanthropist Baba Seva Singh, the chairman of Nishane Sikhi.
ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਸ਼ਵ ਪੱਧਰ 'ਤੇ ਵੱਧ ਰਹੀ ਕਾਰਬਨ ਡਾਈਆਕਸਾਈਡ ਦੀ ਸਮੱਸਿਆ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਜੂਝ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਸੰਸਥਾਵਾਂ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਣ ਲਈ ਉਪਰਾਲੇ ਕਰ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹਨ। ਇਸੇ ਲੜੀ ਦੇ ਤਹਿਤ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਵੀ ਜੋ ਉਪਰਾਲੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਾਂਝ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਪਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹਾਂ।
The whole world is facing a climatic crisis due to increasing carbon emissions. The different organizations of the world are dealing with the crisis through multiple approaches. Nishane Sikhi Khadur Sahib is working on different environmental projects under the following approach.
15ਵੀਂ ਸਦੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਦੀ ਨੀਂਹ ਰੱਖੀ ਅਤੇ ਸਮੁੱਚੀ ਮਾਨਵਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਬਲਹਾਰੀ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਵਸਿਆ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਪਾਠ ਪੜਾਇਆ, ਜਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਧਰਤੀ ਉੱਤੇ ਰਹਿਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਜੀਵ ਜੰਤੂ, ਪਸ਼ੂ ਪੰਛੀਆਂ ਅਤੇ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਲੜੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਰੋਂਦਿਆਂ ਇਸ ਧਰਤੀ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਦਾ ਹੱਕ ਦੱਸਿਆ।
The Sikh belief system was founded by Guru Nanak Dev Ji in the 15th century. He taught a common lesson to the whole of humanity. What Guru Sahib said was that the Almighty Vaheguru said, Balihari Kudrat Vasya, which means we are not custodians or masters or owners of this earth. The world is not made for us. We are just one among millions of species. We have no more right than the ant or the bee or the birds and etc. So he says he treated equally all the living creatures, animals, birds and human beings.
ਪਵਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਾਣੀ ਪਿਤਾ ਮਾਤਾ ਧਰਤ ਮਹੱਤ ਦਾ ਫਰਮਾਨ ਜਾਰੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਦਾ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਨਾਤਾ ਅਤੇ ਸਬੰਧ ਧਰਤੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਨਿਆਮਤਾਂ ਹਵਾ, ਪਾਣੀ ਅਤੇ ਮਿੱਟੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਿਆ।
The concept of it's said in our daily prayers, Pavan Guru Pani Pita Mata Tart Mahat, that is the air is Guru, the water is Father, the earth is Mother. So you can see why are you violating the father and the mother, okay? So the earth is mother. It correlates with the human beings to all the blessings of this earth in the form of air, water and earth.
ਸਿੱਖੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਨਾਤਾ ਪਿਆਰ, ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਅਤੇ ਸਹਿਜ ਦਾ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਬੰਧਿਤ ਹਰ ਜੀਵ ਜੰਤੂ ਦੀ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਕਰੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰੇ।
In our belief system, the relation imbibes the virtues of love, respect and tranquility, where human beings should nurture and love every creature, not just other human beings, but every creature.
ਇਹ ਅਹਿਸਾਸ ਜਾਂ ਉਦਮ ਕਿਸੇ ਡਰ ਕਾਰ ਨਹੀਂ, ਬਾਕੀ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਜੀਵਨ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ, ਸਗੋਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਏ ਪਾਠ ਜਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿਆਰ, ਸਾਂਝ, ਮੁਹੱਬਤ, ਸਤਿਕਾਰ, ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਇਸ ਧਰਤੀ ਦੀ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਸੇਵਾ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਕਾਰ ਸੇਵਾ ਖਡੂਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕਾਰਜਸ਼ੀਲ ਹੈ।
This sensitivity is not because of the fear of end of the world. This sensitivity is there all the time for our creatures, for our environment, for everything. And it's due to the preaching of our gurus that we have this inculcated sense of gratitude to the earth, gratitude to others, gratitude to animals, gratitude to the whole of life. Thus Nishane Sikhi Kar Seva Khadur Sahib is actually engaged in the preservation of Mother Earth.
ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਖਡੂਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਇਸ ਵਿਚਾਰ, ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਅਤੇ ਰਸਤੇ 'ਤੇ ਲਗਭਗ 2 ਦਹਾਕਿਆਂ 1999 ਤੋਂ ਕਾਰਜ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ।
Nishane Sikhi project has been working since 1999 on these principles.
ਇਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਸ਼ੂ ਪੰਛੀਆਂ ਅਤੇ ਜੀਵ ਜੰਤੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਆਵਾਸ ਅਤੇ ਰਹਿਣ ਬਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਲਈ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ 300 ਜੰਗਲ ਲਗਾਏ ਜਾ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਨ।
If anybody knows north of India, Punjab is considered as the breadbasket of India. Every inch of land is under cultivation. Trees and shrubs are all taken more or less cut down by farmers. So, but their project has managed to reforest the area, and they planted 300 mini forests established for developing the habitat for birds, animals and other creatures.
550 ਕਿਲੋਮੀਟਰ ਸੜਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਿਨਾਰੇ ਦਰਖਤ ਵੀ ਲਗਾਏ ਜਾ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਨ।
They have planted trees on 550 kilometers of roads.
ਜਨਤਕ ਅਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਖੁੱਲ੍ਹੀਆਂ ਥਾਵਾਂ 'ਤੇ 5000 ਬੋਰਡ, 5000 ਪਿੱਪਲ ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਵਾਤਾਵਰਨ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ੁੱਧ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਹੋਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਖਤ ਲਗਾਏ ਗਏ ਹਨ।
They have deliberately planted trees which are good at carbon sequestration. So they have planted something like 5,000 banyan trees which are famous in India, and 500 sacred fig trees which have been planted in different places to try and clean the atmosphere.
ਜੈਵਿਕ ਖੇਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਅਪਣਾ ਕੇ ਧਰਤੀ ਦੀ ਕੁੱਖ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਹਿਰ ਘੁਲਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਵੀ ਜੈਵਿਕ ਖੇਤੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਕਿਸਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਪ੍ਰੇਰਿਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ।
In the run-up to try India to become self-sufficient in wheat and other food security, there was a lot of effort on intensive farming. A lot of fertilizers were used. Now fertilizers have poisoned the land in Punjab. So they have been now converting the farmers to organic farming. They source all their food in their gurdwaras. In a gurdwara, if you don't know about Sikh temples, gurdwaras, there is food available from 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning to about 9 o'clock in the evening. Anybody can go and eat there. In the Golden Temple, about 100,000 people eat every day. In their place, about all the food is more or less sourced from organic farming.
ਸੰਜਮਈ ਜੀਵਨ ਅਤੇ ਵੰਡ ਕੇ ਛਕਣ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਵਿਰਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਉਤਸ਼ਾਹਿਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ।
We implement an upliftment of the attributes of sharing and no consumption.
ਮੀਂਹ ਦੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਸੁਚੱਜੀ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ 15 ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟ ਲਗਾ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਾਂ।
They have constructed about 15 rainwater harvesting projects at different complexes.
ਕਿਸਾਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਾਗਬਾਨੀ ਲਈ ਉਤਸ਼ਾਹਿਤ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਤਹਿਤ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ 250 ਏਕੜ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਾਗ ਲਗਾ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਾਂ।
They have put gardens and things like that in about 250 acres of land around that area and the farmers. And 250 acres of land in North India, farmers giving even an inch of land is a big sacrifice.
ਸੂਰਜੀ ਊਰਜਾ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਬਿਜਲੀ ਉਤਪਾਦਨ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ 443 ਕਿਲੋਵਾਟ ਸਮਰੱਥਾ ਵਾਲੇ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਸੋਲਰ ਪਲਾਂਟ ਲਗਾ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਾਂ।
They have a number of education institutions and they're sourcing all their energy from solar energy. They've got 443 kilowatts of solar energy plants.
ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਕਾਰਯੋਗ ਬਾਬਾ ਸੇਵਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਾਰ ਸੇਵਾ ਖਡੂਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਅਗਵਾਈ ਹੇਠ ਨਿਰੰਤਰ ਜਾਰੀ ਹਨ। ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਖਡੂਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਵਾਤਾਵਰਨ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਰਪਿਤ ਇਹ ਕਾਫਲਾ ਮਾਨਵਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਇਹੀ ਸੁਨਾਹਾ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਅਤੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਪਾਕ ਅਤੇ ਪਵਿੱਤਰ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਮਨੁੱਖ 'ਤੇ ਸਮਝਦਾਰੀ ਅਤੇ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੇ ਫਰਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਚਾਣਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਇਸ ਧਰਤੀ 'ਤੇ ਕੁਦਰਤੀ ਸੰਤੁਲਨ ਨੂੰ ਸਥਾਪਿਤ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਹੈ।
All the above mentioned projects are being run efficiently under the patronage of Baba Seva Singh Ji, Kar Seva Khadur Sahib, devoted to the noble cause of environment. This caravan of Nishane Sikhi has only one message to the humanity, that the relation of man and nature is sacred. So human beings should take responsibility of maintaining the balance and preserving the environment.
ਦਾਸ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਰਾਈਟ ਗਰੁੱਪ UK ਨਾਲ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇਸ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕਾਰਜਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ।
Their project and their organization have come here as a result of our organization, Sikh Human Rights Group. They are affiliated to us. So in summing up, our message to everybody is that we have three parts in the whole UNFCCC conference: loss and damage, mitigation, adaptation. I think the processing, the messaging, the communication is missing. We cannot, if one set of messaging is not working in the world, you need to bring in other cultures and other civilizations and bring them on board. We need to move towards pluralism. And that's the only way we can get civil society involved in mitigating what we've already damaged. Thank you very much.
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਝਲਕੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੀ ਆ ਵੀ ਜੋ COP28 ਦੀ ਦੁਬਈ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੇ ਬਸ ਆਖਰੀ ਦੌਰ ਤੱਕ ਆ, ਤੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜਸਦੇਵ ਸਿੰਘ ਰਾਜ ਔਰ ਭਾਈ ਗੁਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਖਡੂਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਖਡੂਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵਾਲੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੱਕ ਵੱਡੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ। ਤਾਂ ਜਸਦੇਵ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, ਕਾਫੀ ਕੁਛ quite a lot of different thoughts were presented, but just before we maybe look into some of the points, how was this your own event received amongst the audience there? What kind of impact did it have within the sphere of influence that you have? Yeah.
Well, considerable really. We were delighted that there was a government of Guinea who was on the platform with us. We had requested them if they could come. We were originally going to get the Princess of Jordan, but because of the Palestinian issue, Jordan was quite busy with that, so couldn't really come. Um, so we had the government of Guinea represented through their Minister of Environment, and then we had this very powerful organization based in Portugal and Brazil, and we had one of the top officials of the UNFCCC speak there as well, and they were quite impressed with what we said, and essentially that there are different approaches, different concepts on human relation with the environment, and they need to be brought on board. So I think we'll be working closely with them in future. Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was
just
quite
on that
well
last
received.
point, in some senses, one of the messages that I took from that event and what was said and what you said at the end as well is that we can't rely on academics or industrialists or capitalists or even politicians to create solutions. We also need to co-create solutions with indigenous people, with people close to the land who live with the land, who live with nature, and that it's really by bringing these two competencies together that we might be able to develop new creative solutions. Is that a good summary as the kind of position that's been
Yes, I
presented?
think you hit the nail on the head, as they say in English. Uh, if people are not convinced, it doesn't matter what laws governments pass, and what academics say, and what anybody does, or etc. NGOs campaign on. If the average person is not convinced that they need to take action, or they need to go back to their own value systems on their relation with the environment, other species, etc., it won't really work. And I think you need to bring civil society in a big way here, their ideas in a big way, what has driven them for thousands of years and then suddenly been dislodged. That all needs to be revived. Yeah.
But in terms of that, as you say, that sometimes, it's particularly in places like India, where maybe the government runs roughshod over people. They will dislodge, displace people. Does it also require some kind of direct action? I'm just thinking about the way in which, say, the rainforest has been. There was direct action. I mean, is that where the new social movements now? I mean, in some sense, the last 300 years has been about nationalisms, about nations, about religious groups. Is this now the new kind of a new activism that Sikhs need to be moving into that space of environmental activism, which it really seems like a kind of a fringe activity amongst, certainly when we talk about Sikh activists here, that hardly gets on the agenda.
Well, yes, I think this is the biggest thing. There are two things that have happened at the UN in the last 20 years, and we've not. I think Sikhs have generally been sleeping over it. One is the defining the new goals of the world under the UN. It's called Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 of them, and that is what is shaping what development will be in future. It has been occurring anyway. They were first set up in 2020 as Millennium Goals, but then changed in 2010 to Sustainable Development Goals, and new things put in. The other one is the environment, climate, etc., which has become the big issue. People, a lot of analysts are saying the future wars will be over water, not over money and gold and things like that, which is true to some extent. And I think we have a huge treasure within Guru Bani about human relation to environment, about environment. I mean, I'll tell you what, in a conference at Bali in environment some years ago, I was jokingly saying to my the other colleagues who were Europeans and other people, I said, look, you violate the environment every day, you violate nature every day by shaving your beard. Yeah? You are denying nature, whereas we Sikhs, we keep what nature has given us. We ourselves do not understand why we keep our hair, why we keep our beards, and why we don't violate nature. But we happily keep our hair and then go around destroying the land, destroying the trees, and destroying other species and things like that. I
What,
think there
what,
needs to be
what is,
that
I mean, on that
messaging
point,
come across.
yeah, just I mean, in a sense, I just want to bring. I mean, you earlier mentioned this accusation about going back to cave times, but in some senses, I mean, I've been reading George Monbiot's work, and you'll know about Monbiot. He's an
Yeah.
environmental activist, and he puts out a thesis that really the only way we can save the planet is to rewild the planet, in a sense, to go back to old times, and some of the projects
yeah,
that you talk about in Punjab are in,
yeah.
creating forests, planting trees, maybe going back to more traditional forms of farming. Isn't that really what we need to be doing? Is turning the clock back, and you know, you know, rather than these
Yeah,
kind of models that we talked about. I mean, and the Sikh movement itself, into
yeah,
the Sikh national, the liberation movement has been very much around. We can become this economic growth. We can become this industrial power, Japan in
yeah,
South Asia. When surely we
yeah.
should be talking about, Guru Nanak's Kartarpur model, that we can become a renaissance for the land itself.
I think precisely. I think if you look at the movement, they're very much based on Western nationalism of the 1920s, or the Islamic nationalism of 1920s and others.
Mm.
They're not based on Gursikhi's, foundations and central beliefs. And I think what we should be bringing in India or South Asia, not just India, is the value systems that were created by Guru Nanak, which are not just good for us, not just good for Sikhs, not just good for Punjab, but the whole world really. And those value systems need to be resurrected. I think we will gain. The currency, I suppose, is a economic term. So we'll gain a lot more respect as Sikhs if we bring forth our value systems. And so this is, and I think this is what Baba Gurpreet Singh very intelligently brought up to that side event, and this is what impressed many of those people who were there. They're from different countries and different civilizations, different religions, different cultures. They were very impressed with what he had to say. Yeah,
But isn't that precisely the point? If we take in, I mean, and I know that you're also very engaged in political theory, and if we look into that sense, and we are coming to an end to the program, is this sense that the world is now being divided in different ways, not in terms of maybe empires or even nation states, but the world is being
yeah,
divided into those people who can secure their interests globally, and those people that are made very precarious. That French philosopher talks about the precariat, this idea that, and surely this is the kind of politics that we need to be engaging in as a diaspora people, and maybe also ideologically as a people who are transnational. If you think about Guru Nanak's philosophy, and
yeah.
the whole problem with the climate change is that doesn't respect any geographical boundaries, does it?
Yeah, yeah. I think we need to, as I said, we need to recover our value systems. We need to find how to take the teachings of the Guru Nanak Dev Ji to the current problems the world is facing. But we first need to learn them ourselves. You're right. If the world has become quite precarious in many ways. There are those who are sitting on, good foundations, good financial institutions, good quite a lot of resources, and there are others who lack them. As a community, we are still fortunate in that we are not in the corner of destitute. But I think we can create a value for ourselves and throughout the world. And if you create a whole value system that is different, then your politics also reflects that, and you gain some sort of autonomy or even independence as a result, because you have shown your value system is very different.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I think
I
I
mean,
think
yeah. Sorry, at the
we need to
time where
work
we
on
are
that.
facing climate crisis, it's very difficult to see where we might get hope. We've got the violence in Gaza. We've got what's happening in Ukraine. We've also got in other parts of the world existing conflicts. And it's said that often
Mm.
it's the young people that are the future. And of course, the plan, as you said, Taljana, we've probably got, if we're lucky, we've got 10, 15, 20 years. And it's,
Yeah.
our children and their children. Do you see a shift in mindsets amongst those new generations, or are they going to just be reproducing the same kind of errors of ours and previous generations?
I think the new generation. I don't know among the Sikhs though, because I think there's. I don't really understand the young Sikh generations, really, quite frankly. I'll be honest. But the younger generation, generally in the world, is quite switched on about the failures of capitalism, the failures of too much development, and the threats that we are facing. What they don't have is a value system, an alternative ideology, to which they can then start transferring. The only alternatives they have is also ideas that emerged in the 19th and 20th century, such as communism or socialism, and they also haven't really produced the results that the world wants, should be seeking. I think there is a hunger for new concepts, new value systems, new visions, and I think we can at least fulfill some of that.
And do you think that in some senses, young people are much more international, much more transnational, and less focused on old nationalisms? And in that sense, do we Sikhs, activists, also need to imbue this new vision? And to say that is not a contradiction in terms of our own aspirations in Punjab, because if the planet dies, then what's the point of making your own nation anyway?
I think I agree with you to some extent, but one of the things about the Sikhs is we always fighting yesterday's war. What should have happened in 45 and 80. We are now picking up those sort of ideas. Mm-hmm. Nationalism, as you saw in Brexit, it was the old and goldies who voted for Brexit, whereas the youth, even the British youth, voted for remaining within Europe. Yeah, the younger generations are less concerned about nationalism, etc. So the curve of nationalism is going the other way now. We are, as I said, we always fight yesterday's war. I think we need to rethink ourselves. We need to rethink where we're going and what we are doing and what we can offer the world, really. I think there's a lot we can, as I said, keep on saying. We have a lot to offer the world. We can't offer the world anything that if we just copy other ideas and theories and then just transfer them and put the word Sikh in there. Okay, as I said, Sikhism is nothing but a Protestant version of Gursikhi, and it just fits into that, and it's just a Protestant with a turban. What we need is a proper Gursikhi, which brings the foundations and the beliefs and things like that forward. And I think a lot of youth will be, not just from our youth, but youth from other communities will be interested in that. They don't necessarily become Sikh, but they will take the ideas, they will take the values, they take the concepts. Because I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
We've only got a couple of minutes left. Just last minute then, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Indigenous Knowledge System Department in KwaZulu University, Durban. They were so impressed with what we were saying was Gursikhi's approach that they have become an affiliate to us. They're Africans, okay? It's a very prestigious university, Durban University in Africa, and the Indigenous Knowledge System Department is very important in South Africa. Almost every civil servant has to take a module there to understand what the indigenous value systems are. And they have latched on, they become our affiliates. They understand the need for plurality and alternative value system. We have a similar affiliate from Brazil who again agree with us. So I think there's a lot we can say to the world.
I'm afraid we're running out of time now, and there's so many more questions. I wanted to explore some kind of what individuals can do, but maybe we can do a follow-up where we can think about what small-scale local projects that we can develop within our own communities. But thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your work at the UN, and we will continue this conversation. So, is he Dr. Jasdev Singh Rai, जिन्होंने ने दस्या भी COP28 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਉੱਥੇ ਸ਼ਮੂਲੀਅਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਤਾਂ ਵਧੀਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ representation ਕੀਤੀ, ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ I think we have to admit that Sikhs are badly and very underrepresented in these kind of spaces, and hopefully in the future and years to come more young Sikhs will move into this space and to show the world what Sikh can offer to save the world. So, ithe samaphtiya